reading comes from Mark 6, verses 7 through 13. If you want to follow along, it's in the New Testament, page 40 in your Pew Bible. Then he went out among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them." So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed them with oil, many who were sick, and cured them. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. It is, as I just said to our younger members, it's the traveling season. And all of us have taken trips before. All of us have packed for trips before. So I'm going to ask you this question to answer in your own minds. What is the one thing you most often forget to pack? What is that one thing that you have experience with where you arrived at your destination, you started taking your stuff out, and sometime in or sometime along your trip you went, "Ah, I forgot to bring that." Usually it's something. For me, most often, I forget to pack my dress shoes. Now that may sound odd, but as a pastor, a lot of times when I travel, I'm either going to a meeting or I'm going sometimes to a wedding, to perform a wedding, to perform a funeral, to do worship. So I travel plenty of times. And I will always, if I'm doing something formal in worship or doing some kind of service, I'll pack my robe. But time after time, I look for my dress shoes and I did it again. In fact, I've done it so many times, I actually bought a pair of black Converse tennis shoes. True. That I wear when I travel. And I have used those tennis shoes many times, and if anybody did notice, they never mentioned it. Never mentioned it. I am not wearing them today, but I do wear my Converse high top, black, and totally black, not an ounce of white in them, so they can get away with looking a little bit formal. Now, whatever we may forget by habit, it is probably not one of the essentials that I talked about with the kids that anyone must have to journey anywhere. One of those things where if you have forgotten it, it will stop your journey in its track. The essentials. Money, mention that to them. Identification, to have your ID, especially these days, and always a means to get there. You have to have a way to get from point A to point B. My daughter Patty is in Austin, Texas this weekend. And she's visiting friends. She'll be back tomorrow. Please keep her in your prayers for a safe journey. And she was all set to go Thursday. She was flying out Friday morning on this airline, this new airline out of Tucson called Via Airline, which had very, very cheap tickets. And I said to Patty, now be careful. If it's too cheap, that might be a problem, especially in an airline that is kind of new. Sure enough, they called her Thursday afternoon and said, your flight's canceled. Bye. Because in the new airlines, if they don't fill up the plane, they don't fly. She was hysterical. She had already planned her trip. She had tickets for a concert they're going to. And so I said, Patty, you're going to have to go with another airline. And sure enough, she was able to get a flight the next day. But of course, it cost her a little more than she expected. By the way, don't fly via airlines. Go. And said, Patty, what have we learned? Not to fly via airlines. But sometimes disasters can happen. Sometimes we do lose the essentials when we make a journey. One of my favorite movies is the original version of The Out of Towners, written by Neil Simon. This movie was made in 1970. There was a remake that wasn't very good, but the 1970 version is hilarious. It starred Jack Lemmon and Sandy Dennis. And they play two people from Ohio, from the Midwest, who've never been to New York before. But he's going for an interview. So they decide to do the Big Apple, right? A lot of people do. And the hilarity, the funniness, the humor in it is that as they begin this journey, everything they need to travel is stripped away from them. They get to New York, but their flight is rerouted to Boston because of weather. When they get to Boston, they can't find a way to New York until much later because there is a transit strike, both in Boston and in New York. Their luggage is lost in Boston. Finally, they find a way to get to New York City, and their hotel reservation is canceled. Now they have no place to stay. And because mass transit is on strike, they are forced to walk everywhere because they get mugged and they have no money. This goes on and on and on. Finally, they are sleeping in Central Park in the clothes that they started their journey on, and they are each asking themselves, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to do this? We have nothing. How are we going to get out of this? All their essentials are gone. They don't have it. I wonder if the apostles might have been asking themselves the same question as Jesus called them together and sent them out on their first mission journey into the countryside. How are we going to do this? How is this even possible? To me, what is amazing about the story that you just heard from Mark is that Jesus doesn't tell them what to take. He tells them what not to take. And everything that he told them not to take was essential for travel in the time of Christ. Look at what he told them not to take. What did he say to them? He said, don't take any food. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2, at least they wouldn't be stuck alone, and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. No food. You're on your own. Can't take any food with you. No beggar's bag. A beggar's bag was something like a knapsack. So that if somebody did give them something, or they were able to maybe finagle something, they would put it into their beggar's bag and carry it with them. He said, you're not taking that. He said, no money. No money. He told them not even to take a change of clothes. None of it. So what does he allow the apostles to take with them? What is it? 2 things. Actually 3. A staff. Sandals. That was good. And 1 tunic. That was good as well. Those 3. Now, some scholars would say, well, that was a sign that they were going on a very local trip. They didn't need to take the other stuff. But if you heard what was just read, they were going to be staying at people's houses. They were going out for a long time. In fact, the Greek indicates that they would be out possibly for months. It's the language is being used. They were going out for a long time. So he sends them on this elaborate journey through these villages with nothing. Shoes on their feet, staff in their hand, clothes on their back. But he does give them one gift: the authority over the unclean spirits, the authority to heal, the power that Christ himself has used, that they have seen Christ use to care for others. who are in need. Now, this is a new way of thinking about authority, especially in regards to the Messiah, because in the traditional Jewish understanding, authority, the authority of the Messiah, was one of power and politics, one of leading Israel above all the other nations, one of challenging Rome and all the pagans. That's how traditionally the Jewish religion at that time understood the authority of the promised Messiah. And here is Jesus literally turning that upside down and giving them the authority to heal, to use compassion, to care for others. Jesus not only tells them what they cannot take, he also tells them how they must spend their time. He said to them, wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you, and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. Now, what's that about? Why does Jesus say that? Well, hospitality in the time of Christ was a huge deal. It was such a huge deal that if a traveler was treated inhospitably, they could bring down the authorities on the one that treated them that way. They had a right to take revenge against someone who would be inhospitable to them, to someone that would reject them. It was more than just a custom. It was a law to welcome strangers. And so here is Jesus saying to his apostles, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You have to move on. This command of stay there until you leave the place, if any place will not welcome you, and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust, that enfolds several things, not just for the apostles, but for all followers of Christ and for the church up to today. One of the things is embracing God's purpose, no matter the temptation to do otherwise. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you're an apostle. You're out doing these wonderful things. You're invited to someone's house to stay the night. Maybe a poor person. And then somebody with a bigger house or more food on their table comes along and says, leave there and come stay with us. And that would happen. That would happen. Jesus says to them, you can't do that. If you go where they invite you and welcome you, you stay there until you move to the next place. In other words, God needs you to be in that house. Everything you are doing is under God's command, under God's care, for God's purpose. So though you may be tempted to take better lodgings, stay where you are welcome first. Trust. That is where God wants you to be. And then there's that theme of expecting rejection. That's a part of one's Christian journey, according to Christ. And then how to handle that rejection. In other words, what Jesus is saying here is that basically Christianity is not a means of barter or trade. There is no quid pro quo. If you will join the church, here are great things that will happen. If you will contribute enough money, here's how you will be blessed. I mean, that's the language that has been used in Christianity for far too many years. The theme of, we'll do something for you if you'll do something for us. But that's not the way Jesus presents that. You're not going out there to be accepted. You're not going out there to fill pews or to have the biggest number that attend a worship service, or to be the big dog in town, as they would say. This is not a means of barter. Rob Bell, Christian pastor, young guy, I'm not sure what his age is now, but he was kicked out of the fundamental church that he led because he wouldn't buy into this idea of offering things for people to join. Here's what he wrote. It is when the church gives itself away in radical acts of service and compassion, expecting nothing in return, that the way of Jesus is most vividly put on display. He goes on, to do this, the church must stop thinking about everybody primarily in categories of in or out, saved or not, believer or non-believer. Jesus commanded us to love our neighbor, and our neighbor can be anybody. He concludes, God shows no favoritism. And he was kicked out of his church, fired, because of that attitude. It is pervasive in the Christian church, and it's wrong. It is clear from Jesus' instructions to his followers that only by themselves becoming needy could they be used by God to meet the needs of others. Only by them becoming dependent. Only by them walking out, stepping out in trust could they be used by God. What a risk that was at that time. Because travel was dangerous on those roads. Especially if all you had was a staff and sandwich. Travel was dangerous. And then the risk of not having food, not having money. I would not start on a trip like that. Would you? Jesus told them, this is how you are to go out and do my mission. You have to be needy in order to meet God's needs. So what is our need? Well, this table represents our need. This table is the place where our need meets God's need. And we do not come here to get something, but to surrender things, to give up things, to rid ourselves of things, to rid ourselves of all that comes between us and God's Holy Spirit. Our sin. Recognizing that we are not worthy of this table. Our sin. Giving that up. Our willfulness. Our demands that God do things for us. When we come here, we are here to empty ourselves and open ourselves up to the Holy Spirit who meets us at this table. I mean, we come to this table with many things, with much. We have much, especially compared to other places in the world and other peoples. We have much when we come to this table. But according to Christ, we are to depart this table with nothing for our journey of faith except the presence and the love of Christ. We pack our hearts, not our suitcases. And that's all, according to Christ, we need to do when we follow Him. Pack our hearts. We have to empty them first. But we receive that gift, that authority to go out and care for the world. We have a great deal, plenty, for the journey of life. But nothing that we have, no matter how heavy our suitcases are, or how much we fill up our cars or our trunks, We have nothing that can help us in our journey of faith, packed away somewhere. What we need for our journey of faith is here. Here. Christ told us what we need. We need compassion for others. We need to feel their need. We need to see their need. And when we see their need and feel their need, we need to be generous in caring for them, in filling their needs. And we need to have need ourselves. We need to recognize our dependency upon God. If we walk with Christ, we are to take nothing for our journey except trust that God is guiding us. I say this to us as a church and as individuals. We go out with nothing because God will give us everything that we need to do God's work. The apostles had to go out and trust Christ. They had to trust Him. So 2 by 2, they went. And when they went, they found doors opening to them. People welcoming them in. They found people in need of healing. They saw wonderful things and did wonderful things. And they came back to Christ excited, filled with joy. Because they hadn't gone hungry. They hadn't slept out under the stars. They had places to stay. How wonderful it is to know, isn't it, that God is taking care of you. Isn't it in our need that we draw closest to Christ? Isn't it out of our need? Because at this table we are all needy people. And we need this table to begin our journey of faith. So that is why we come. With nothing for the journey except our love for Christ and our willingness to go out and serve. Each of us has a journey to make. What is yours? What is mine? God will show that to you today and every day.